Hi, my name is Tracy. I'm in a group with two other teammates, Mira and Sumil. Today, our team is going to do a presentation on cyberbullying. Before we start, I want to show a short video clip that captures the emotional impact of cyberbullying.
Hey, loser.
Leave me alone.
When a child shares hurtful comments online, that's bullying. Visit erasebullying.ca to learn how to help your child stand up to cyberbullying.
Thank you for watching. What you just saw highlights how cyberbullying can happen in everyday online spaces, where jokes, teasing, or even small comments can build up into something powerful and harmful. Today, our group will explore cyberbullying. So what is cyberbullying? According to Public Safety Canada 2024, cyberbullying is the use of computers, smartphones, or other connected devices to embarrass, hurt, mock, threaten, or be mean to someone online. Social media, messaging apps, online games, or forums that are most popular digital platforms where people harass, shame, exclude, or threaten others. Unlike traditional in-person bullying, cyberbullying can happen anytime, any place, and often continue long after school ends or the device is put down. It can be anonymous and follow a victim everywhere, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is a serious problem that affects young people every day. Nearly 1 in 3 Canadian teens has experienced some form of cyberbullying. These experiences can lead to real psychological harm, including anxiety, depression, and trauma. Our group chose this topic because it's something that we see and hear about all the time, especially among young people and in the recent years. Cyberbullying isn't just a headline, it's happening in real life to classmates, friends, and sometimes to ourselves. Unlike face-to-face bullying, online harassment can feel more isolating because it doesn't stop when you go home. It follows people through their phones, social media. You cannot simply escape from moving to another place. And internet has memory. You can easily find something from 20 years ago. The victim can get re-traumatized. We've seen cyberbullying can affect someone's confidence, mental health, and even their sense of safety. Another reason we want to talk about this is because a lot of people actually still underestimate how harmful online bullying can be. Sometimes they're just words or young kids should just ignore. But they're actually as serious as other forms of abuse. By choosing this topic, we just wanted to raise awareness and encourage empathy, education, and early support. Research shows that cyberbullying can seriously affect young people's mental health. In one study by Sampasa Kaninga, more than 5,000 Canadian students were surveyed, and those who experienced cyberbullying were over twice as likely to report poor mental health, emotional distress, or even suicidal thoughts. Those effects were stronger for girls and for those who didn't have strong support at home. Another study by Kim and her colleagues found that students who faced online harassment were about 30% more likely to feel depressed, anxious, and unhappy with life. Even though it happens behind the screen, the harm is very real. It can lower self-esteem and affect one person's overall well-being. So basically, both studies clearly show that cyberbullying can leave deep emotional scars and make young people feel unsafe, anxious, and alone. To show how serious this really is, I want to mention a recent article from the Washington Post called "Cyberbullying Can Cause PTSD Symptoms in Kids." The article gives evidence in the real world that cyberbullying can cause psychological harm. It explains that many teens who experienced online harassment show PTSD-like symptoms, things like anxiety, being constantly on edge, and trouble sleeping. These are the same kinds of symptoms usually you will see people who have gone through physical violence. What's really shocking to me is that more than half of the teens in the study have said they have been bullied online. That tells us that cyberbullying isn't rare. It's something many young people going through, and it can leave deep emotional scars. The article makes very clear that cyberbullying isn't just about mean messages. The impact can last for a long time and have very real impact on mental health, something we just cannot afford to ignore. So both media reporting and academic research point to the same conclusion. Cyberbullying can seriously harm young people's mental health. Before we dive deeper, here is our thesis statement. Cyberbullying is a growing social issue that can cause serious and lasting psychological harm to young people. By promoting empathy, increasing awareness, and fostering resilience, we can reduce its impact and create a culture of kindness and respect both online and offline. With that in mind, I will now hand it over to my teammates who will explain the key theories and legal frameworks around this issue.
Hi, my name is Mira, and I'm going to be discussing the current approaches in youth justice to address the issue of cyberbullying. So restorative justice is an effective way of responding. The premise of restorative justice is to replace punitive approaches with a platform where victims' needs are addressed and they can hold the perpetrator accountable. Some schools have implemented this initiative by placing teachers at the forefront of facilitating and mediating between students. And then I have a little quote here. So in response to cyberbullying and other forms of online mediated aggression and harm, RP offer opportunities to unpack the nuances of behaviors and their effects. So this showcases the importance of restorative measures in addressing the outcomes of this type of bullying in order to find a solution and a middle ground between the victim and the offender. So the victim and the offender have an opportunity to confront one another. And then next, I have extrajudicial measures and sanctions. So this often entails community involvement, and our textbook emphasizes the use of these measures when it comes to dealing with youth crimes. So it says options like extrajudicial measures and extrajudicial sanctions are legislatively available to police and courts to divert youth away from the formal system. So here it is more so a push for less criminal justice involvement, as it's essential because it can open up opportunities for the youth to access other resources that are available to them with the help of the community and other beneficial sources that could prevent them from being entrenched within the system further. So that's the main concern when it comes to extrajudicial measures and sanctions. And then lastly, we have prevention efforts. So this entails identifying risk factors that exist, whether it's the physical or social risk factors. And then once we tackle that, we can address this issue from different methods. And then next, we're going to talk about the Youth Criminal Justice Act and how this addresses cyberbullying. So initially, I noticed that the act does not directly address the issue of cyberbullying. It focuses on addressing crime more broadly and the different ways that we can approach this issue, from restorative measures to sentencing. And it uses the criminal code to identify which section the crime falls under in order to address it appropriately. And the textbook also highlights alternative measures are an important part of the Youth Criminal Justice Act, both for effectiveness and cost. So in other words, the main goal of the act is to address criminal activity through a rehabilitative lens. And then they use this, it's basically showcased through restorative justice, community service, and rehabilitation. And lastly, we have relevant criminological theories. So firstly, we have the social learning theory. So this theory basically supports the idea that offending can occur due to the idea of wanting to fit in with our peers. This can include targeting someone with the hope that they'll receive validation from others. Additionally, this theory explains how this behavior is learned by observing others and imitating their behavior. So oftentimes, especially in high school, we tend to want to fit in with others. We see like, oh, this person has these new pair of shoes. I want this new pair of shoes. So if we look at cyberbullying, it can almost be mirrored in that way. And then oftentimes youth are deeply concerned with how their peers will perceive them. So this could be a motive for participating in cyberbullying because of the idea of wanting to blend in and participate and acts that allow them that, even if they are damaging and harmful to the person experiencing the harm. And the article Developmental Pathway from associating with antisocial peers to cyber and traditional bullying explains to us that the social learning theory is applicable in explaining the process in which associating with antisocial peers could increase the risk of cyber and traditional bullying perpetration. So this theory focuses on the influences that exist in one's external environment and how this can be an underlying contributor and a form of encouragement for the act of cyberbullying. And then lastly, we have trauma, which is a major topic that we've encountered throughout this course. It's one of the largest contributors to youth offending, and a victim of bullying or other forms of trauma could be more likely to victimize someone else if they didn't have the effective coping strategies in place or a support system. Thank you.
Some of the notable aspects of cyberbullying pertain to how cyberbullying occurs. It has been found that girls are more likely to be perpetrators and victims of cyberbullying as per the course lectures. Why this is the case is because men are more likely to bully physically. Boys bully to assert their dominance, whereas girls bully to put others down to maintain their social status. Other aspects of cyberbullying is how cyberbullying differs from traditional bullying. Cyberbullying can happen anywhere and at any time of the day, posted for the whole world to see. Traditional bullying can happen and victims can leave to go home where they can feel like they have a space safe. Cyberbullying does not allow this because it takes place 24/7. There could also be a level of anonymous, so it can be difficult to trace who the perpetrator is. Another aspect of cyberbullying is how the LGBTQ community are often at the most risk of being victimized. Limited research has been done on this, but they found that they are at a greater risk than heterosexual people from being a victim of bullying. This is also taken from the course lectures. Lastly, cyberbullying occurs at all 3 levels of schools. Cyberbullying has been rising in elementary school in the last few years. It's fairly uncommon since young children often don't have access to devices and social medias, but cyberbullying does occur the most during middle school, but then sort of declines in high school. This is also taken from the course lectures. So some of the debates surrounding cyberbullying. So in the last few years, there's been debate surrounding what kind of legislation can be implemented to punish those who cyberbully. The debates were about what could constitute cyberbullying, if certain legislation is even effective, and how this legislation would even work. So one of the first bills to kind of tackle cyberbullying was Bill C-13, the Protecting Canadians from Online Crime Act. It was one of Canada's first bills that came into effect to protect Canadians from cyberbullying. The bill got passed in 2014, and taken from the text, some of the things that it did was punish those who spread intimate and private photos, as well as give police more powers. So this was taken straight from the text. The Protecting Canadians from the Online Crime Act will prohibit the non-consensual distribution of intimate images, empower a court to order the removal of intimate images off the internet, permit the court to order forfeiture of the computer, cell phone, or any other device used in the offense. And then it also modernized existing investigation powers to enable police, such as prior judicial oversight, to obtain electronic evidence from the internet and other new technologies. So the debate surrounding this bill came to challenge the effectiveness of it and to even see if it was possible. Some of the thoughts that I had were it's essentially impossible to wipe a picture off the internet after it's posted. So people kind of argued if this bill is even useful, as courts can strike down a picture to be removed off the internet. But is it really going to be off the internet if a court says there's thousands of accounts all over the world that might have this picture and always keep posting it, right? I noticed that the bill only covers intimate photos. So what does this mean for cyberbullying through words and text? If someone says something hurtful, will there be repercussions for them? Does hate crime also outweigh free speech in this sense? So these are some of the questions that I think about that can impact the perception of cyberbullying. So the impacts of cyberbullying. There are many negative impacts of cyberbullying. A study from Batnager and Narayan in 2024 did a study on the main impacts of cyberbullying. This is straight from the text, but the term self-esteem describes a person's overall perception of their own value or worth. It can be defined as an individual's level of self-worth, self-approval, self-praise, or self-like. Cyberbullying leads to victims experiencing a lack of self-worth, anxiety, frustration, low self-confidence, diminished interest, low emotional intelligence, manipulating behavior, loneliness, aggressive nature, self-doubt, the feeling of inadequacy, and sometimes depression or suicidal thoughts, antisocial behavior, avoidance to academics, and the inability to form healthy relationships. There are a lot of factors that make a youth at a greater risk of getting bullied, but one of the biggest reasons to increase the role of victimization is often students that are children, youth that come from low economic backgrounds. Another factor could be their gender, also if they're a part of a marginalized race, and also their beliefs. Repeated bullying will put someone at a big risk of developing mental conditions such as schizophrenia and other mental problems. That was also from the course lectures. Overall, there's lots of impacts to cyberbullying on mental and both physical health. Prevention efforts for cyberbullying. In the last 10 years, there have been major campaigns all over the world to combat cyberbullying. This was sort of in response to the Amanda Todd story, which was one of the first international stories relating to a person dying due to cyberbullying. This story also opened the world's eyes on the topic of cyberbullying and launched debates on legislation and policy. Anti-cyberbullying campaigns were launched, and the focus of these campaigns were to raise as much awareness about cyberbullying. They also gave strategies to parents and children on ways to prevent and minimize cyberbullying. They conducted a study to see if the programs that schools were implementing were having a positive effect on students that were cyber bystanders and not doing anything. The goal was to raise awareness and ensure students that were reporting cyberbullying. They found that the program had little to no effect on students and that they weren't reporting as much as the schools hoped to. They did find that having an empty-based program was more successful, as well as it had better results with older students. This shows that even though schools were putting resources in all of these anti-cyberbullying programs and campaigns, it really isn't having that much of an effect on youth today. This puts into question whether schools should be putting more resources into something that necessarily isn't working, or if they should find better ways to resonate and get their message across to the youth. In January 2014, the government launched an anti-cyberbullying national awareness campaign, Stop Hate Online, to raise awareness among Canadians and the impact of cyberbullying and how much this behavior amounts to criminal activity. The government also launched a website, a resource for parents and youth that indicate information advice and tools needed to identify, prevent, and stop cyberbullying. The government also supported the development of a number of school-based projects to prevent bullying, including cyberbullying, as it was part of a $10 million funding through Public Safety Canada that was committed in 2012 towards new crime prevention projects. This also coincided with Bill C-13 and the passing of that legislation, so this kind of went hand in hand. So our opinion, so this is a quote from Tracy: cyberbullying is a serious and very personal issue, especially how much time people spend on social media. We learned that how powerful social media can be for connection and harm. My thoughts of it was that cyberbullying is not a black and white problem. It is very complex and hard to track down through legislation. Work has been done to counter cyberbullying, but there is still much more work to be done. Mira was quoted to say, although there are some approaches that are effective in addressing cyberbullying, there should be more in an effort to implement policies and youth efforts to tackle the issue. Schools should continue to monitor and watch for signs of cyberbullying to avoid escalation and the justice system intervention. So our opinions continued. This is sort of our way of how we can implement cyberbullying prevention. So Tracy said, we think that education and empathy are key. Schools should teach students about responsible social media use and the real effects of online bullying. Social media platforms need stronger rules and faster ways to remove harmful content. We also believe that parents should talk openly with their children about online experience, so victims should never feel alone. Support, kindness, and awareness can make a real difference. I said governments, parents, platforms, and all of society should be responsible for countering cyberbullying. Peers should not be worried to report others getting bullied, and victims should not feel helpless if they are getting bullied. The government needs to bring in better legislation to protect youth and young adults from being victimized. Mira said the use of restorative justice methods to resolve cyberbullying cases in schools is a great start. Focusing on the different factors that contribute to cases of cyberbullying, such as physical and social circumstances, to address this issue. And these were just some of our references that we used throughout our project. And then that's it. Thank you for watching.